Because there's what he does. He's a cleaner. He cleans signs. But the thing is, he's not employed by councils or whatever. He does this voluntarily. And you sort of think to yourself, well, who cleans these signs? Why have these signs been allowed to get into this terrible state of disrepair and filthiness?
So basically, long story short, about 6 years ago, I used to be a window cleaner. In the community where I lived, I noticed all of the road signs were filthy, and I was perfectly equipped to clean them. So basically, I cleaned the road signs as a bit of a thank you to the community and sort of make a little bit of awareness of my window cleaning business at the time. Yeah. Sort of cleans up the area, makes the road safer, and that's kind of how that started. And people found it like a really satisfying sort of approach. So that sort of led on to today of a video in cleaning the dirty road signs and making sort of satisfying content with it as well.
What is the equipment? What have we got here?
So this is a water-fed pole system connected to a backpack, which is what feeds the water through the end of the brush there. It's perfectly equipped to basically remove this green dirty, it's like a mildew build-up that you get on the signs. Yeah. As you can see, this is like extremely effective at removing so.
So GBNews viewers, if they spot a particularly grisly sign in their area, then they can get in touch.
They can do, yeah.
And Liam Wilder's the sign guy can sort you out.
If you find Liam the sign guy online, drop me a message, let me know, and I'll add you to my list of places.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out about the Tesco worker who wears a fez and sued for race discrimination because his bosses said he looked like Tommy Cooper. I mean, you're wearing a fez, mate. And the pro-Palestinian protesters are angry that there's a ceasefire for some reason and have clashed with cops. The good news is the cops won. And with Syria reconquered by Islamists, ISIS are making a comeback. We've got the latest on their training camp for kids. Hey, at least it gets the kids away from screens and in the fresh air. I'm Leo Kearse, and tonight I've got the comedians Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon taking you through tomorrow's top stories. This is Headliners. For tomorrow's headlines, let's go to tonight's headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. Over a dozen people have been injured in a ski lift accident in Spain. Astun ski resort said around 15 people were injured, 3 of them seriously. The regional government previously said today that at least 30 people had been injured, 9 of them very seriously. State TV channel TVE reported around 80 people remained trapped for some time on that chairlift. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says he was shocked by the news of the incident. The Israeli Prime Minister's office says they cannot move forward with the ceasefire deal until, quote, we receive the list of hostages to be released. In a speech this evening, Benjamin Netanyahu said this war has changed the face of the Middle East, whilst also suggesting the campaign is not yet over. It comes after the Israeli military earlier said it was preparing to receive hostages after their release from Hamas captivity, ahead of the ceasefire deal expected to take effect tomorrow. In a phased release, the first 3 hostages are to be freed tomorrow, followed by 30 more over a 6-week period. British hostage Emily Damari is reported to be amongst the first 30 to leave. In return, Palestinian detainees will be released and a sharp increase in humanitarian aid. More than 70 pro-Palestinian protesters have been arrested in Trafalgar Square today on suspicion of breaching protest conditions after demonstrators broke through a police line as they marched from a rally in Whitehall. Thousands of protesters met a line of police officers and eventually broke through, with those who made it to the square later finding themselves being held in one corner. The Metropolitan Police warned the group to disperse or face arrest, later announcing that 20 to 30 people had breached conditions and were arrested. Those arrests are for public order offences and for, of course, breaching those conditions put in place by police. Thousands of people are calling on the government to stop arming Israel. Donald Trump is to review the Chagos deal when he returns to the White House on Monday. The president-elect's team directly intervened in the British government's deal, demanding the delay, according to The Telegraph. Fears over Chinese influence if the strategically important islands are returned to Mauritius are fueling the delay. The US has a permanent military base on the East African island. Thousands of people marched from 3 separate points around Washington, D.C. today ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. The marches were being led by several national activist groups, including women's rights groups. The 47th president's inauguration will be the first to be held indoors since Ronald Reagan's in 1985 due to the cold weather. Temperatures are expected to drop there to minus 14 degrees Celsius. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's top stories with 3 top comedians. Let's kick off with a look at some of the front pages. The Mail on Sunday leads with Team Trump's revenge on Starmer for meddling in US election. The Sunday Express has Reeves' debt would fund 300,000 nurses. And the Observer has fear of chaos in Gaza as families begin trek home after ceasefire. Now, more front pages in a sec, but first, Steve, what do you make of this Mail on Sunday? Trump's planning revenge on Starmer.
It was hard to focus on that word. At the top, they have the word "Secret Diary of Hitler's English Girlfriend." They love a bad boy, don't they?
Yeah, yeah.
But well, this is the idea of sending some people to help make Nigel Farage the PM.
Yeah.
Now, this is because what happened before, sending some Labour people to try and help Kamala Harris win.
Well, yeah, this is the thing, because for all the talk, Labour say, oh, Trump and Musk shouldn't be meddling in British politics. It's like, what were you doing when you sent 100 Labour staffers?
But you got to pick a side, haven't you? So, like, if you think it's fine what Labour did, you have to be absolutely fine with this. If you think it was appalling what Labour did, you should also be appalled by this. But you've met people, so either if you like Labour, no, what they did's fine, but this is out of order. Yeah, people, if you met them, they're full of bias.
Well, no, I think we need to have balance. And I think it's absolutely fair for... I mean, Nick, wouldn't you say it's fair if Labour do it, then Trump should also do it as well?
Well, one thing we know about Trump is he loves petty revenge. So, yeah, I'm sure he will.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? I mean, it was so foolish of Starmer. Starmer didn't seem to think it was a big deal that those Labour people went over, but it's obviously been taken as a big deal by the Trump team. It's so foolish. I mean, and we see the result. Starmer was not invited to the inauguration despite 12 world leaders being invited. So there's clearly a snub there. We saw the things Lammy said in the past when it was cool to attack Trump. And so we're going to have this problem where Starmer just not aligned with Trump. And it would have been so easy to be aligned with him because he loves the UK, he loves the Queen, etc., the royal family. But they've just made a total mess of it all. And also this stuff about Musk meddling is hypocritical given what Labour have done. And there's this idea Labour are also going to be more aligned with the EU than the US. But if you were skillful, like someone like Tony Blair, you could actually do both. Now, his alignment with Bush didn't go that well in many ways because of the whole Iraq war thing. But you've got to admit he was much better at diplomacy than Starmer seems to be. Yeah,
and talking of diplomacy, Steve, they're talking about Mandelson being vetoed as ambassador. I mean, there's so many tricks that Trump can use to just humiliate Starmer.
Yes, I mean, it's not necessarily just vetoed, it'll be more ignored or subverted or kind of, oh, yeah, we'll just put you on hold and we'll get Nigel Farage on the line. That's not going to look good. I'm surprised, though, because for a while I was thinking Mandelson was a good pick for this. Lord, he's called Lord. Americans love all that stuff, don't they? He sounds like Americans think Brits sound like.
That's a good point.
Like evil villain, slightly Hugh Grantish. So I thought he was going to do well, but it's now getting a bit personal. We should also mention that they do say, how does Sophie look so sensational now she's 60? We don't know, but we do know it takes 2 full pages to explain. So I am not going to stick to that regime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be honest, probably the person helping Farage get elected the most is Keir Starmer. So maybe Trump should just fund Starmer and make sure there's plenty of attention on Starmer, and that'll help reform romp home.
They are friends, though.
5D chess.
He crossed the floor to have a chat with Farage, so maybe he wants that too.
Yeah, maybe he does. Moving on, we've got The Observer. Nick, what did they have in there?
So The Observer has fears of chaos in Gaza as families begin trek home after ceasefire. And it's kind of about the people on the ground. We hear a lot about the ceasefire, but we don't think about the fact that they've got to go hundreds of thousands of people try to return home. Because it is going ahead, this ceasefire. Although, if you read The Observer, and I hear they're not that keen on Israel sometimes. But it does sound like Netanyahu is saying he has the right to return to fighting if needed.
Yeah.
Kind of knowing Netanyahu, he'll probably find it is needed. So it may well be temporary. And they also make it sound very much in the Observer like Israel were getting as much bombing as they could. It says before the ceasefire, Israel continued to carry out attacks inside Gaza. So it's like, let's get in all our bombing before we have to stop for a little bit.
Yeah, and both sides seem to be unhappy about it. I mean, the hardliners in the right wing of the Israeli parliament are unhappy that they haven't been able to destroy more of Gaza and possibly seize. They're talking about taking the north of Gaza, taking control of it. And people on Hamas's side, I mean, it really hasn't gone very well for them. I don't know how many Hamas people are left, but a lot of them have died. Which obviously is one of the good things, the positive things to come out of this whole conflict. But yeah, it's surprising to see that already it's sort of being set up to fail, and it's only for, I think the agreement's only for 6 weeks.
Yeah, there's 3 phases of it, and you can guarantee that. Well, not guarantee. You can't guarantee if you've not actually got everything all nailed down details wise. Phase 2 ain't going to happen. There'll be some reason to argue about it. Interesting though, because when they talk about what scenes will they find out when they go back to where their homes are or used to be, I don't know. I've not actually found enough detail to realise are they going to let journalists in to have a look? It's one of the things we've not had about this. The ability to have journalists on the actual ground in those areas, that would give a lot more information. That would be interesting to see.
Although Al Jazeera say that they've had journalists on the ground, but I'm not sure how reliable those journalists are. And we've also got here Sadiq Khan warns of the march of fascism as Trump takes power again.
This is hilarious. This is just Sadiq Khan basically saying, look, all of Europe is going one way because they hate my kind of politics, which is progressive nonsense that's failing. So we need to censor the internet so that no one can say stuff. This is where he goes. He's like, guys, we're going to have to do a crackdown on it's basically what it amounts to. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So he's against fascism, the guy who, 3 or 4 days ago, said he wouldn't be willing to work with politicians who don't agree with him. Isn't that like step one if you're slowly wanting to take over?
I love what's happened to you here, Steve. You were lefty when you started here.
You've been radicalised.
Now you're like, we need to get rid of Khan. It's people like him.
I've never been a Sadiq Khan fan, mainly because I once got lost in a low-traffic neighbourhood once. I knew my way out of there, but they suddenly put plants in my way. Plants don't grow that fast. I should have been able to outwit them.
I thought it was because you had eyes and a brain, but no.
No, it's mainly the driving.
I was disgusted by Sadiq Khan the other day. He was questioned by Susan Hall in the, I think it was the London Assembly, questioned about grooming gangs in London. And this is a serious topic, obviously, right now, a topic that's been suppressed by, left-wing authorities and the establishment. So Susan Hall is quite right to raise it with Sadiq Khan. And he just smirked his way through it and pretended he didn't know what she was talking about, pretended he didn't have any idea what the issue was. I thought it was disgusting. In terms of politicking, he's trying to play the game of oh, you're racist, but I don't think, how many times has he played that game? He's playing it right now with Trump. He's like, oh, it's fascism. It's racism.
Yeah, it's not going to work anymore. And one thing he has observed, though, is there is a trend with sort of populism, whatever you call it, across Europe and in America. So he has at least sort of tacitly acknowledged here that the time of the progressive elite is it's under threat, let's say.
Yeah, and moving on to the Sunday Times, Steve, we've got something about pupils getting extra time in exams.
Yeah, a third of pupils now get extra time for whatever reason. They have some reason to get extra time. Figures quadruple in a decade as parents seek help. So that's the interesting bit. In theory, there are certain conditions or whatever, reasons to have extra time in an exam. And some people are saying it's being gamed, so maybe you don't necessarily have this. Maybe you've managed to find a doctor who says, oh, they might have one of these conditions. Just make exams longer.
Yeah.
Because it's not as if an extra hour on an exam wouldn't have helped me.
But I think the whole point of exams is to put you in that cubicle of pressure to see how you perform in a short time frame. Nick, as a high IQ man, you must be appalled at this.
Yeah, I am. I love the exams. So it's kind of famous. I got the 3rd highest grade in the country on my history A-level syllabus. I rarely mention it. But
you say kind of famous.
I love the exam. It's famous amongst people who have to work with me. Yeah. But exams are so good. It's men from the boys stuff. It's like, I haven't really done much revision. I've done one night, and I'm now going to smack it out of the park. And yeah, it's all. I don't mind if some people have some extra time. I just like exams over coursework. That is my stance. Do you want to do something about Harry's sociopathic podcast pitch as well?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because Prince Harry, is he still called Prince? Prince Harry is. He's pitched all these ideas to Spotify. And actually, I got in another paper, The Mail, it said some of Harry's bizarre concepts range from reviewing hot chocolate every week to interviewing the likes of Putin and Trump about being sociopaths. He just wanted to ask them. They're calling it his sociopathic podcast pitch because the idea was going to be It'd take people who aren't sociopaths, like Tom, and it'd say, why are you a sociopath then? What a great podcast that would have been.
Who's going to want to be on that? Apart
He
from...
didn't think about the booking issue.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm Harry. Of course everyone want to do it. But of course,
The
no
first
one would.
podcast sounds good if he was reviewing the band Hot Chocolate. Like every episode is just another, everyone's winner is a cracking song.
Yeah, and he's like, and this little known B-side. Yeah, that would
Did
be
it
good.
start with a kiss?
Well,
These questions and more.
let's look at some of the other front pages. The Sunday Telegraph leads with Attorney General in row over Chagos refugees. They've also got a story about the police ignoring grooming gangs because of Labour targets culture. The Sunday Express says Reeves' debt would fund 300,000 nurses. And the Daily Star has the Orange Man baby is a zombie. The Telegraph there with the ongoing row over the Chagos Islands, Nick.
Yeah, there's Chagos Islands, and there's the Chagos refugees. It's very complicated. So the Attorney General is facing a fresh conflict of interest row after it emerged asylum seekers he previously represented were granted a one-off deal to come to Britain from the Chagos Islands months after his appointment. This was in 2023, and he was still a private practicing lawyer. And he unsuccessfully took the UK government to court on behalf of Sri Lankan asylum seekers trying to get to Britain from the Chagos Islands. So natural fit for Labour, a kind of subversive, working against the interests of the country. I don't know what we're allowed to say, but that was my take. It's a bit complicated. That was my takeaway.
But at least he lost. What you want are legal people who are willing to lose. So they're not good at it.
Yes, he has some bad agendas, but he's not good, so he loses.
That's exactly what you should want, isn't it?
That's the most valuable attribute in a socialist is incompetence, because then they can't.
And that was all satire in case I said anything.
Yeah, he is a lawyer.
He's going to get hauled off to the gulags.
Satirical content.
There's also this story about the police ignoring grooming gangs. We've heard of the authorities ignoring grooming gangs because of fear of appearing racist in the wake of the Macpherson report. Here, it says the police ignore grooming gangs because of Labour targets culture. So they had to attack, I guess, volume crime, acquisitive crime, burglaries, and all the rest of it. So they didn't have time to deal with it, which crimes that I would expect are actually very complicated and difficult to prosecute.
Yeah, as you say, it's South Yorkshire Police, and they focus on vehicle burglary and robbery crimes, yes, because of these targets. So yeah, it's yet another sort of perverse incentive. There's the political correctness. Oh, we don't want to be called racist. Now there's like, oh, and I've got these other targets, so we ignored these girls. And it's just, this is why we need a national inquiry. We're going to realise the scale of this thing.
But in defence of the authorities, Steve, I mean, the police were there to deal with crimes committed by British people, and this isn't part of British culture. This, phoning around all your uncles and cousins and brothers and friends at work and saying, do you want to help me rape this child?
No, it might not be part of British culture. It's still illegal under our laws.
Yeah,
So
but they didn't have the structure there to deal with, a wide-scale child rape gang problem.
No, but if suddenly that starts to happen, we should have the systems in place to stop it. And this is where it comes down to this. Like, if you focus on a fight in a pub and one of them wants to press charges, get the other one to press charges, look, you've got 2 arrests or something. You can make your numbers just by going, here's a metric, score highly in this.
Yeah.
That's where the problem is. Because if you say to the police, just do well, just get some morals and maintain these laws, then if suddenly rape gangs start, the police could be there to try and stop it. I know what you're saying. It's not as if they've been specifically trained for this type of outcome, but because you've got a target, you chase the target. Same in education. Instead of just teaching to make people clever, teach to do really well at these set of questions. Then you can perform well in an exam, get like the 3rd highest history grade, and never shut up about it.
OK, and moving on, we've got the Sunday Express. Yeah, he didn't hear it.
Sorry, I was too busy reading about Rachel Reeves. I should have been listening to
No, we didn't say anything about it.
Did you attack me?
No.
Not really.
I'm just doing my own thing over here, just chilling. I'm not a big fan of the show, so I catch up on my reading, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Hope you don't mind.
Don't watch it when you're not speaking. Reeves' debt would fund 300,000 nurses. Look, she wanted to have a budget for growth. It has not been that. It seems to have increased borrowing, which means any money they actually do get is going to be spent on borrowing. So it will end up, sadly, being more tax and less spending. So even if you like tax and spend, you ain't going to get it.
Oh, my God. So Labour aren't even doing the thing that they promised.
Exactly. But what the Express have done here, and I predict this is going to be the front page for like the next 3 weeks, there's a certain amount of money that we know is a cost, and then they just work out the cost of other things and divide one by the other.
Yeah.
It's 300,000 nurses. They'll be telling us how many football stadiums or areas the size of Wales it could be at some stage. Do you know what? Labour could fix this by paying nurses more. That 300,000 figure would get smaller.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I knew Rachel Reeves was in trouble when I listened to a podcast with the BBC today with Nick Robinson, it was like one of those like nice interviews. That's how I know she's in trouble, because I know she favours a Sicilian defence in chess, and I shouldn't know that. But it's like, hey, let's get to know the real Rachel. And she was like, yeah, I'm confident I'm going to do a great job and stuff. So I was like, you're going to crash the economy. That's why I'm doing this interview.
I knew she was going to crash the economy when I saw Labour written behind her head. Anyway, that's the front page is done. Join us after the break for a possible Tory reform mashup. We've got Palestinian protesters fighting police and the Home Office actually stopping migration for a change. See you in a couple of minutes. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome or different vitamins and minerals in a form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose as a practitioner or surgeon very carefully and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
This January, history will be made again.
Join GB News as we bring you full coverage of Donald Trump's presidential inauguration.
From the swearing-in ceremony to the celebrations, we'll be there to capture every moment that shapes the next chapter of world politics.
The best guests, live updates and unparalleled insight as Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration Monday from 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's go to your say for a couple of your comments, because you've said some nice things about us, which is great. Richard Tolson says, this is by far the best lineup for this show. All knowledgeable, intelligent, articulate and funny. Perfect. Thank you very much. Eileen Dowdswell says, my dream team on Headliners. And Fred Burton says, we better not read out Fred's one. The Telegraph now. And another far-right conspiracy theory comes true as financial companies admit that they debanked customers over their COVID views. Steve?
Yep, the headline is proof that lockdown critics were debanked because of their views. Shocking headline. I mean, slightly less shocking when you realise it's PayPal. I know I'm being harsh, but you think like, how are you going to fund your rubbish you buy from Etsy now? But it is true, because it is effectively a bank, even though you don't think of it. But regardless, it's one of these where you shouldn't be prevented from having a financial product because of your views. Like, I applied for an ISA not that long ago, and the form's quite long, but there was no tick box about viewpoint on migration. You don't want any of that. It's just, I've got some money. Would you like to have some of my money and do banky things with it? But apparently not at PayPal. This is Molly Kingsley had an account terminated after she spoke out against COVID vaccinations for children and school closures. And if you're against lockdowns, of course, you're going to hate this. But I'm more interested in that slice of society that might have been open to the idea, but thinks this is appalling. That's where the important vote is. Someone who's got... You might disagree with me, but I don't think you should have to keep all your money in a bag under the mattress just because you disagree.
Yeah, absolutely, especially as money doesn't exist anymore except in digital form. And, I mean, Nick, this is disgusting when you consider that many of the concerns were not just valid at the time, but later proved to be completely correct. I mean, the idea of COVID vaccine harm would have got you debanked from PayPal and kicked off YouTube and all the rest of it a few years ago. But then, yesterday we found out that the government at the time was setting aside money to pay for COVID vaccine damage. So they knew it was going to happen.
Right, and another thing that she was against was school closures, which we now know was a disastrous policy. So it's as sinister as it gets. The government has a policy. It may well be a wrong policy. And if you don't go along with it, you can lose your access to banking. Yeah. It's about as sinister as you can get. It's about as terrifying and authoritarian as it gets, especially in a country where we know the native population is now being persecuted politically, as we've seen recently with some of the ways Starmer's treated people. Certain people go to jail, certain people get treated differently. And
this is almost more sinister than that, because that's done by the government, whereas this is done by a private company, which should be, at arm's length. And people from Singapore, from China, have said to me that, they feel the censorship is worse in the UK, because at least you know what it is in China. Yeah. Whereas here, it's almost sort of socially administered.
I said it before, it's the total state. There's no real division between public and private. They all go along, they all sing from the same hymn sheet. And then they're not morally neutral. They all buy into... It's like the government are doing this, so is PayPal. You're like, this should be absurd, but that's where we are.
PayPal, I say, pay enemy. More like.
Yeah, right.
I'm working
for some
here.
People. Well, the Mail on Sunday now, and there's a ceasefire in Gaza, but not everyone is happy about it. Pro-Palestinian protesters were waving swastikas today, and even worse, they were cheering on Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn, he's back. Yeah, it's Met rules pro-Palestine protests won't be allowed to gather near London synagogue as pressure builds. So 8 people have been arrested. There's been these protesters. Some have had signs praising Hamas, others displaying the swastika. So some mixed bunch, some lefties and some absolute mad lads in there. And you've got Jeremy Corbyn.
I think they're all lefties.
We could argue National Socialism. Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell have been there. They've been going along with signs with praising Mao. They were just at the wrong demonstration. That's a joke. That's the kind of thing they do. Remember when John McDonnell got the little red book out? That's a reference to that. No, I'm sure they weren't. They're top lads. But and there was a strange comment from the police that it's an illegal march at the moment was a comment. I don't know what at the moment, maybe there were some white people there or something, but why was it at the moment? How does it become illegal or not illegal?
We've got footage of the march right here. So there you can see, it's reminiscent of the leftists marching with the Islamists in Iran in 1979 when they allied to overthrow the Shah. Didn't work out too well for
the
left.
Now we get the stories of the world's problems in our country. Isn't that brilliant?
It reminds me of the Mitchell and Webb sketch where they're dressed up and they realise they've got the eagle and the...
We the baddies.
Yeah, we the baddies. I think if you're walking with a swastika, you should have that moment going, are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
We've got the swastika, famously... It's not the good guy side. So maybe just that much. Get a little look at yourself as you walk past a shop and they're reflected in the window. You should be like, ooh, wait a minute.
I've got to lose weight and I'm a Nazi.
Well, we've got the Observer now accusing the Home Office of stopping migration from hellish third world war zones. Isn't this exactly what the Home Office should be doing, Steve?
This is not going to be the win you're expecting, I'm afraid. So Home Office accused of blocking people stuck in war zones from joining family in UK. So it's not saying, they're not saying, no, you don't have the right to come here. People in war zones who could apply to be asylum seekers can apply to be reunited with family members. They have to give some biometric data. That sounds fancy, but it's basically a picture and a fingerprint. Like, your banking app requires more information than that just to get in on your own phone.
Yeah.
But it can, I've never been in a war zone. I'm very happy about that. But it can be difficult to find a photo me booth. And I think that's part of the problem. So they can't get the pictures, they can't get that. You can get away.
Everybody's got a phone, come on.
Well, I mean, maybe, because they even do the thing. But it turns out you can apply to not have to give the data. They've not really used these waivers. Don't even get obsessed with this. Lower down the article is the thing you should be worried about. If you want to get angry, and I believe many people do, there's a bill being put through Parliament to widen the definition of family members. That's it'll be like when someone plays for Wales because a great-great-granddad used to live there. That's the kind of stuff you should be worried
This is
about.
what they tried to do in Ireland. They tried to widen the definition of family to include basically friends. You could say anybody. You could say you're in a throuple or a polygamous relationship with, you know, Steve and Nick, and then they can all come and start claiming benefits.
That's a weird place to put a pause.
Nick, what do you make of this?
Well, I don't want to be callous. I mean, Tom Homan was sort of saying in the US we could just send the families back is one way of dealing with it. But if you're in a war zone, obviously horrific. I mean, I sometimes think the UK is not in a position to be helping war-torn countries anymore because we're a kind of failed country. We have rape gangs running amok, just doing what they want.
Yeah.
But my problem with it is people are saying here, why can't the UK treat the people from Gaza in the same way that Ukrainian refugees were treated? And I just don't think it's similar. One, Ukraine is much more culturally similar. And two, one feels they might actually go home after the war and would want to go home, the ones I've spoken to. Whereas you feel like with the Gazans, I'm not sure that would be the case.
And they tend to be women as well. In fact, there was a hilarious moment when I believe it was Hamza Yusuf asked a bunch of Ukrainian refugees, where are all the men? Because he doesn't understand the concept of a genuine refugee. So,
or a war.
Moving on, we've got the Telegraph, and it looks like Trump is going to hit the ground running this week, and so are illegal immigrants, Nick.
This is mad. So it's Trump's immigration raids to begin next week. And this is Operation Safeguard, they're calling it, with Tom Homan, who, let's face it, would deport his own mother. He absolutely goes for it. And what these are, they're going to Chicago and just get all the illegal immigrants because Chicago is a sanctuary city. Now, what is a sanctuary city? It's a municipality that limits or denies its cooperation with the national government in enforcing immigration law. That is absolutely insane. I mean, that's like
treasonous.
That's like if Texas just said, we're doing our own thing now, we're at war with Joe Biden. You know, they basically seceded. It's absolutely insane. This is what they are. And they say they don't feel they have to, they don't document immigration status, which is mad, and will not share information with federal immigration authorities. This is what Chicago say. So Tom Homan, the border czar, says that if the Chicago mayor knowingly harbours or conceals an alien, he'll prosecute him. It's basically the start of that Tarantino movie. It's like, are you harbouring illegals under your floorboards? Except that, in this case, Trump's the good guy, obviously. Key difference.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be attacking the concept of sanctuary cities. Surely they've done most of the work for you, haven't they? If you want to find undocumented migrants, go to the place where they've all turned up. They're going, like, come here, this is a sanctuary city, you're safe. Yeah. Now you know where to find them all.
And also, a lot of the criticism of the roundup of illegal immigrants is that the economy is dependent on them for farming and stuff. But there aren't very many farms in metropolitan Chicago.
Yeah, and I was going to add, Chicago's not doing that well. Like, you're more likely to die in Chicago than you are flying a drone over Putin's house. Like, it's a dangerous place. And it's not like it's a radically right-wing thing to do the basic duties of a state, like document who's there, stop illegal people coming in. And this is really one reason why the Democrats lost, because they've gone so mad with stuff like these sanctuary cities. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, still to come in the second half. Remember ISIS? They're planning a comeback tour. Plus, we've got violent witches and a British university bringing back racial segregation. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now, to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry for all of us. There will be some spells of sunshine in between. Across Northern Ireland, we hold on to a lot of cloud once again, but temperatures holding up at around 7 or 8 degrees. Across northern England, though, a cold start here with a touch of frost, maybe even some mist and fog patches. And across the southern parts of England, that's where we'll see some drizzle, but even some snow grains just moving their way northwards. So it is going to be a cloudy, murky, gloomy picture on Sunday with a lot of cloud across the country. There will be some breaks in the cloud to give some sunnier spells, but these are mostly across northern parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain just coming in to the far west. Otherwise, a cold picture as well, temperatures struggling 2 or 3 degrees, milder further towards the west. So a cold start on Monday morning, a touch of frost in places, often cloudy, and we'll see some rain just coming into northern parts of Wales and the Midlands with showers around the north and west coast of Scotland. Similar picture on Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of cloud, outbreaks of rain and drizzle with temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Mail on Sunday now, and apparently Britain is no longer a homogenous high-trust society where people are honest and law-abiding. I wonder what happened to destroy that, Nick.
How do you know that, Leo? Did you walk outside once? Britain is becoming a nation of dishonest scroungers who openly steal from supermarkets and defraud the benefit system, study warns. Thank you for the study.
We're all Scottish.
Yeah, it must be. So, basically, the number of people who think benefits claims are never justified has gone from 85 to 67%, and the likelihood that people think you'll be caught for it has gone down as well. And there are all these social media fads encouraging you to steal on TikTok and things. So it's anarcho-tyranny, as I always talk about. It's, as you say, it's a low-trust society. And you know, England had a unique sense of fair play. That was not universal. So when you so when you import the whole world, you do lose that. And it's young people it's pointing at here as well. So we're falling apart. Maybe it's deliberate, some sort of deliberate strategy to destroy the country. You almost want to believe that, because otherwise it's just total decline. What I do is I don't steal even a bag in the supermarket, not even the bag, because I think it's important. I think God's watching, your ancestors are watching, your conscience is watching. What I think we should do, have personal standards, never steal, and also, why not try, as a state, cutting off people's hands for stealing? Just hear me out. You only have to do it once or twice, and then it's solved.
So all the people that are worried about Sharia law in the UK, you're saying, don't worry, this could actually save us.
Yeah, that's not what I expected from you. I don't think there is some big plan. I think it's the, what do they call it, the drama triad. There's 3 positions. You're either the victim, the persecutor, or the saviour. And everyone's worked out you want to be the victim. It's the powerful position, and everyone is the victim. So much so that even straight white guys manage to then be the victim, like, oh, I don't get to be anywhere near the top of the hierarchy of victimhood. So everyone pretends they're the victim, which then means, well, of course I can nick stuff because I'm the victim and corporations are rich. And of course I can get stuff from the state because other people get from the state, so why can't I?
Yeah.
And if you've got that mindset, then it's the race to the bottom. We might as well just be criminals.
But don't you think the whole fundamental ideology of our ruling class kind of allows for that? It's just kind of anarcho-tyranny. The criminal's a victim.
And I'm seeing it, you know, in so many places in real life, in my life. Like I was going to buy a house, and the deal fell through. But the guy who bought the house, I was like, how did he get an ex-council house? How did he get the right to buy a council house when he's like, you know, a rich guy or whatever? He put one of his wives in the house as a council tenant, and then she got the right to buy. And it's so everybody is fiddling.
That's where you're going wrong, Leo. Not enough wives.
Not enough wives.
About that.
I know. I would have had to remove some of the beds. in the bedroom. The Guardian now with the news that people working in TV are treated horribly and exposed to traumatic content. Which one of you wrote this?
They can't all have worked with Lewis, can they? It's not possible.
UK TV workers exposed to illegal or barely legal conditions. To do research on this, I googled for barely legal. I just like to apologise to the IT people who had to call me up about it. But it's just long hours, low pay, and this thing about traumatic content, that if you're editing something, they're not warned that this thing will include traumatic content.
Yeah.
Look, I know I don't have the full array, the Dulux wall chart of human emotions, but come on, you work in TV. They're making out, this report, this TV Industry Human Rights Forum, make out that they're like a 0 hours contract down a mine or like going up a chimney or something like that. You don't have to work in TV.
Yeah.
And I used to work in TV.
If you're editing, some of us, sometimes we still do, but if you're editing, you know, they say, oh, I edited a programme about suicide and it was very traumatic and triggering.
Yeah.
It's like, surely it wasn't a surprise when you got there and you're like, oh, look at this.
It was called Channel 5's Top 5 Suicides. Yeah. What else did you expect was going to be in that show?
Yeah, I sympathise to an extent, but you're right. If you've come from an industry like comedy, which is basically feels like sweeping chimneys as a 12-year-old Victorian child, that's the amount of rights you have in comedy. So you have slightly more rights in this industry, still not many. But yeah, I do sympathise to an extent, but then part of me thinks, do you just don't be in TV, just learn to plumb. You know what I mean? Remember, learn to code, learn to plumb is my new thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Plumb?
Get any other job if you can't hack it. Actually, don't. We probably need people working in TV to keep it all running.
Oh, yeah.
We've got The Sun on Sunday now with good news for anyone nostalgic for ISIS. They're making a comeback with training camps for kids in North Syria. Hey, if it's cheaper than Centre Parks, I'm taking the family, Nick.
Love your positive attitude on this, Leo. It's firebombs and cutthroat kids. Shamima Begum camps breeding next ISIS generation, hell-bent on unleashing terror on West. Oh, so not great. So we've got all these ISIS people in Syria, as you know, and oddly the other day Sebastian Gorka, who can't be all bad because he follows me on Twitter, but he sort of suggested
friend of mine.
Oh, is he? Well, he suggested we should take them all back, and we're like, do you have to say that, Sebastian? Because we'd rather not. And it all comes down to the Kurds in Syria, are the ones, they're de facto jailers, as they're calling them. All they have the resources to do is just basically keep them there at this point.
Yeah.
And it's all to do with, perhaps this is coming from people who want Trump to be less isolationist, but the hope is that Trump will keep back in the Kurds so we don't have to take these people. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Because Trump, he's known as isolationist in terms of not wanting pointless foreign wars, but he's also very proud of taking out ISIS. So I'm hoping he goes back to finish the job, because it sounds like we have a new generation of terror.
Yeah, and the issue as well is with the fall of Assad, who was the dictator in Syria for so long. Syria really sucked in all the Islamists from all around the world to fight against Assad. You had Chechens and people from the Middle East all fighting against Assad. That's how one of the ways ISIS started in the first place. So with Assad gone and with an Islamist or Islamist-leaning regime now in power in Syria, all those Islamists are going to be exported back to the rest of the world, including Europe, of course. And of course, there's going to be refugee routes because they're going to say there's more ethnic conflict in Syria. So there's going to be more routes for terrorists to come into Europe, come into Britain.
Yeah, and it speaks here about how it's effectively a generational thing, because you've got all these women, these ISIS brides with kids who are now being trained. And there's a little further down the article, there's a bit where one of the young ones was saying, I want to fight infidels when I grow up. And it's just nice to hear a kid not saying be a YouTuber. Yeah. Although, depending on how it goes, he might end up on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly better than Lily Phillips' career plans. Anyway, the Mail on Sunday now, and in the Middle Ages, 60,000 women were executed for being witches. It seems barbaric, but look what happens when you don't do it, Steve.
German politician is attacked by a coven of carnival witches who beat him up and broke his ribs. I don't want to kink shame anyone. If this is what you're into, but he was beaten up by 6 women wearing hoods, leather aprons and dark stockings. So it is objectively hot. It's not just a kink thing, is it? But Alexander Quebec claims that he was left with broken ribs after they attacked him in the Black Forest region. Ooh.
What part of the body's that?
Oh, I don't know, but you don't want to be hit there by a bunch of witches, do you? These Heimbach Hexer witches have denied it.
Right.
So I think, this is a far enough away country for me to be able to say this and not get sued. He was just beaten up by 6 women. And then it's embarrassing to lose a fight to 6 women, and he's like, oh, no, but they had superpowers.
Yeah.
They did all the spells.
Moving on to this one, Nick, we've got the Telegraph now with good news for racists. Progressive University, King's College London is bringing back racial segregation, Nick.
We should rename the show Good News for Racists. It's the university students asked to attend race-segregated classes funded by NHS. what a great idea. So it's King's College London, and they have these classes. We're used to this kind of thing by now. People have to address whiteness and talk about why colonialism is their responsibility. I love that. We never get responsibility for the good things. It's just the bad stuff. It's like, oh, you're welcome to have the steam engine and the telephone and the World Wide Web. And that's just English people, by the way. That's not just white, but that's England alone.
He's going to say Scottish for
Shakespeare, Tolkien, Scottish people did stuff as well. But it's like...
Most of that on the list.
We have to feel eternal shame for our past, but we don't get to say, well, we basically invented everything.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that... that white people don't have any culture, which is a completely evil lie. It's just because we get exported so much culture that people don't realise they're actually living in it. Yeah. And we saw Evergreen College do this when they banned Brett Weinstein from college. That was one of the sort of seminal moments in like the wokeness kicking off and the culture war. And it's when you're segregating people, you know, on racial grounds. It's
based on skin colour.
Yeah,
Are we the bad guys?
Yeah, have a look at yourself in the moments that you talked about.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a really sort of regressive move. I think one of the big mistakes the progressive left made was to focus so utterly on race and really, you know, be divisive and make everybody think about the differences between different demographics like that.
To be fair, though, what they had was 2 courses. One for people from ethnic backgrounds to go on and a course for white people to be told off about being white. And then they were contacted by the Telegraph and they've changed it now. Everyone is welcome on that second course.
So everyone's just getting told off. OK, well, coming up in the final section, we'll tell you how the government can now spy on you using your smell and a fez-wearing Tesco worker who's sick of being compared to Tommy Cooper. I don't know, maybe take the fez off. This is Headliners, only on GB News. I could do a fez right now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
For anyone hoping to escape the midwinter gloom in the UK and find some sunshine, well, things are improving across the central Med, but they are deteriorating in Iberia. We've had some decent sunshine, and that continues in Spain. But for Portugal, a band of rain moves in on Sunday, and that will progress across Spain into Gibraltar during the next few days. Meanwhile, this low, which was named Storm Gabri by the Italians, is weakening, so less wind and rain for Italy, but it stays breezy in the Greek islands.
GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Look, if people want to do veganuary, that's all well and good, but it shouldn't be forced on people, should it? Or even strongly suggested by something like the NHS?
It's not being forced on anybody. People can choose in the Wirral or any other NH trust that gets involved whether they want to partake or not. What they're doing are promoting the benefits of a vegan diet. Now, you imagine you're the NHS trust. You've got one person dying every 3 minutes from heart disease, and vegans get much less high blood pressure, much less heart disease than do meat eaters. So surely, if your job is to promote health, then you should let people know these kind of stats. Vegans get less cancer. Red meat is a class 1 carcinogen, classed by the World Health Organization as processed meat definitely causes cancer of the bowel. So it's just letting people know what the health advantages are of reducing or taking meat completely out of your diet and becoming vegan. You get less diabetes type 2, which is a big problem in the UK, less deaths from stroke, and around 1/5 less of all cancers. Imagine it was drugs that had that kind of impact. People would be hailing it and going, wow, this is amazing.
You know, to call it about diversity and inclusion, I just think that's a load of nonsense. This is a move away by public bodies from this compulsory veganism. Look, your speaker from Viva, which is a very hardline animal rights organisation, attempts to talk about the environment and other issues, but really this to them is about animal rights. They don't believe in a world where we should use animals. I completely disagree with the speaker. I respect her right to say that, of course, but I completely disagree. And that's why the NHS and public bodies just shouldn't be getting involved in things that are so controversial.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's have a couple of your say comments. JC Superstar, great name, says, great show, Leo, Steve and Nick. More than happy to watch you guys every night on Headliners. Thank you very much. And Martin Watson says, Leo, I could do with a fez right now. Funny line, and at least he can laugh at himself. I did not know that was going out live. Moving on to the papers. The Mail on Sunday now with the best crossover since Busted and McFly formed McBusted. It's Reform and the Conservatives. The Reformatives, Steve?
Yeah, or Conform, which sounds less exciting. It's probably not that one, is it? Yeah, Tory voters are split on whether parties should merge with Reform UK. Polls show as Nigel Farage plots to make cost of living the next battleground. That's almost a separate issue and amazing. That's exactly what we should be talking about. But will they merge? It's the Ross and Rachel of GB News, really. And the polls are split on whether this would be a good move or not. Just for context, it's something that the Tories have said will never happen, something that Reform have said will never happen. So it's a waste of our time, but you've got to fill the hour. So a recent Gov poll commissioned by The Times found that they're neck and neck, Reform and Labour. Tories in third place. But when you look at who would be the best Prime Minister, Farage gets 20%, Keir Starmer 19%. That's close.
Yeah.
Kemi Badenoch gets 9%. How are you 10 points behind Keir Starmer? Keir Starmer's not had a great run recently. He's upset, pensioners and farmers and anyone who have to pay for their own suits. And all these people, British people, and yet somehow you're losing to him. That feels like the story to me.
Yeah, I mean, this seems it seems to make sense, really, considering that Britain is a conservative nation, and if they combined, then they would be the biggest bloc in Parliament.
Yeah, my only concern as ever is, will that just mean that they're the new Tories, or will it be Reform? Will the Reform actually bring the Tories a bit to the right?
Yeah.
They could hardly be further left.
There's people in the Tories who could be in Reform. I mean, Robert Jenrick says...
Loads of people. And I think this
things.
pact is likely because it's the only way you can fight against the tactical voting of, Labour and Lib Dems and so on. But Farage's got so many things, open goals. He's got immigration. Next, he's going to go at cost of living. And apparently, Steve Bannon... Did you see Matt Goodwin, now of GB News, his Twitter feed, and he said he'd talked to Steve Bannon. He says the Tories are finished. They just don't know it yet.
Right. Wow, amazing. We've got the Eye Weekend now, and Big Brother isn't just watching you, he's also smelling you, Steve.
How your walk and body odour could soon be used to track your every move. There are some people on public transport I could track, like a few streets. But it's tech, it's biometrics again, things that you can measure about people's bodies, and the headline's all about smell and walk, because that's kind of fancy, but it's the same thing as getting ear prints. They're all unique. Anything that's unique you can use, blood vessel distribution. And the face one's the worrying one. Facial recognition.
Yeah.
And all of these groups pushing back against it. Good luck to you, but I mean, it's coming, isn't it? The technology will be so good and so easy. Just point a camera at someone and somehow you'll have an identifying feature. It's going to be unstoppable.
And they kind of already have it in China, apparently. I think what's going to be really popular, Nick, is those those glasses with the fake nose and the moustache that you put on like that. And you look like Groucho Marx.
But do they give you like a national clean if they find you smell? Was that part of the process? You should. Or do they just say, right, he smells and just move on?
Well, moving on, we've got the Daily Star now, and a Tesco worker who wears a fez says it's racist that he's compared to Tommy Cooper. Mate, you're wearing a fez. Nick, tell us about this.
I know you've got strong private opinions on fezzes, Leo, but fez wearing...
Not that private.
Fez wearing... Not anymore. Fez wearing Tesco worker loses discrimination case over Tommy Cooper jokes. So this was Kester Bay, which is a person, not a place. And he lost this. This employment judge ruled he had no chance of succeeding with his complaint that he was getting people saying just like that and other jokes. Because he looked like. Because that's what Tommy. That's what we know about the fez in this country.
Yeah.
But the judge said Mr. Bay could not suggest any reason why this was connected with race or religion. It was just that he looked like Tommy Cooper. And that still just about is not a crime to take the mick out of someone because they look like Tommy. It's very nearly is in this country.
Isn't it great to see some common sense like that and to see somebody say, no, he's just saying you look like Tommy Cooper. It's not a racist crime.
Tommy Cooper was white. It doesn't even make sense, does it? For it to be Racial.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's just the hat. I think, yeah, it would have been nicer if the judge presiding would have finished with the verdict and just gone, just like that. Dismissed, just like that.
And then had a heart attack.
Yeah. Too soon somehow.
Big verdict, little verdict. Big verdict, little verdict. Anyway, we've got the Telegraph now with the tricks mechanics used to rip off women. Is one of them knowing about cars, Steve?
It is. Tricks mechanics used to discriminate, it says here, against women. And you're right, it's rip off, not discriminate, isn't it? It's I want money from you, not I secretly hate all women. But it's a great article. Read it all. There's loads of words. Basically, it's stories of women who took a car in, got ripped off. And at the end of their story, they say, and I think it's because I was a woman. So there's no actual evidence. What the story points out that people who work in some small garages might want to rip people off.
Yeah.
They are women, and therefore they experience being ripped off and think it's to do with that. There's no data on how many men get ripped off. The survey says only 23% of women fully trust garages. Again, that's about trust, not garages.
Nick, have you got women to be rational? Because that is sexist.
I was going to say, have you got some misogyny you can cram into 10 seconds?
I think I just did it, didn't I?
He didn't need 10.
Nailed it.
OK, well, let's go to the papers. The show is nearly over, so let's have another quick look at Sunday's front pages. The Mail on Sunday leads with Team Trump's revenge on Starmer for meddling in the US election. It didn't work for Starmer, though. The Sunday Express has Reeves' debt would fund 300,000 nurses. The Observer has fear of chaos in Gaza as families begin trek home after ceasefire. The Sunday Telegraph has Attorney General in row over Chagos refugees. And the Daily Star Sunday has the orange man baby is a zombie. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Steve and Nick. And I'll be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Paul Cox and Simon Evans. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. And until tomorrow night, have a great weekend and good night. And God bless. That's your punchline. Catchphrase. Catchphrase.
Serious.
Just like that.
Bez.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, throughout this weekend, it's going to be cloudy, gloomy and cold with a touch of frost as we go overnight into Sunday morning. Looking at the bigger picture, then we have this area of high pressure extending to the south of the UK, squeezing the ice bars further towards the northwest with a weather front just coming in to Northern Ireland. But through the rest of this evening and overnight, we hold on to this blanket of cloud, pushing its way further northwards into Wales and into northern parts of England. There'll be some clear spells in between, temperatures quickly falling here to give a touch of frost in places, mild further towards the west. Now to start Sunday morning then, a bright but cold start across northern parts of Scotland. Dry